Yes. Okay, good. I have access now. So there is nobody in here right now. I'm gonna like wait just a little bit because I'm behind. My name is Shanita Murray. I am the CEO of Choosing Joy, and the National Black Doulas have asked we, the lactation consultants and counselors and peer counselors, to come on. Hello guys, come in. I would love for this to be like a back and forth conversation of breastfeeding moms, get you guys input, give you guys some good tips and education. Hey Candace. But so they've asked us to put out some topics that would be helpful to Black mothers during this week. It is, as most of you all know, it is it's National Breastfeeding Month. Should be National Black Breastfeeding Month, but it's not. It's National Breastfeeding Month. And in this week, hi Layla, in this week, it is National Black Breastfeeding Week. So that's huge for us. That's like a really big deal. And I'm excited to be able to just share with you guys a little bit of what I know. And the things that I know are largely based on my own breastfeeding journey. So I'm a mom of 4 girls. My oldest is going to be 19 in October. And then my baby is 3. So I'm not too far removed from breastfeeding. And what I do know is that a lot of what I'm going to be able to share with you guys, nobody told me. So I'm just out here winging it, which is what most of us are doing. And what I'm finding among a lot of the Black moms that I'm working with is as soon as the baby is born, our concern is, when's my milk going to come in? Like right away. Soon as it's time to do that latch, baby latches on, there's automatically this anxiety and this pressure of, am I making enough milk? Is the baby going to have enough? Like right away. And I hate that for us because the baby was just born. Like the baby was just freshly detached from its source of nutrients. So first of all, the baby's not starving. That's number one. The baby is not hungry and starving. We're good. And we kind of need to take a step back. And I want to help you guys take the pressure and the stress off of breastfeeding. Also, just to kind of go over the anatomy and physiology behind breastfeeding so you understand why at different stages your milk is coming in the way it's coming in. And so it's not like a mystery, this whole thing. So let me backtrack. I said that my name is Shanita. I'm the CEO of Choosing Joy. And I am located in New Jersey. I'm a member of National Black Doulas Association. And I've been now for almost about a year. So I started my business in March, but I didn't really start functioning in it until November. And then at that time, bam, like something just hit me. I'm going to say it was the spirit because I was led to join the National Black Doula Association. I was trained by International Doula Institute, and their program was very good. I received from them, thank you, Clem. I received from them my certification to be a doula, a postpartum doula. And then I also was certified as a breastfeeding counselor and as a childbirth educator and a perinatal nutrition educator. So I got a lot of things under my belt. I'm a former RN. I'm still an RN. I keep my license current, but I used to work in labor and delivery for about under a year. And then I decided to just move forward and do my own thing because I knew what I wanted to do and I knew I couldn't do it the way I wanted to in the hospital. So that's me, my situation. Like I said, I told you guys about my babies, my 4 girls. And I did breastfeed all 4 of those babies ranging from 15 months, 11 months, 8, and my last one for 2 years. So if you don't take anything else away from this, know that I was in the same boat. Like I was right there with y'all in the trenches, minus the knowledge. So that made it a little more challenging. But as I was saying, there's the concern of being able to make milk, right? Let's just dispel a bunch of myths right off the bat. We need to do that. A lot of moms think that they cannot make milk. Like I've heard so many moms say, you know, my mom didn't make milk, so I can't make milk, or whatever the case may be. That is a myth. There are very few conditions where you just do not make milk. And on a side note, you'll see me looking down from time to time because I will get off on a tangent. So I'm going to be looking down, referencing my notes so I don't waste your time or mine for that matter. But so hypoplastic breast, that's where there's a morphology, the shape of the breast is off. Then there is PCOS in some cases. Fun fact, breast reduction, you can absolutely create milk with breast reduction. Nobody can tell you how the pathways and the ducts are going to come back together. And the ducts and the nerves are not exactly the same. So some people will not have as much sensation. For example, I had a client yesterday. She delivered her baby at 24 weeks and she is making milk. She's status post a breast reduction a couple years back, but the breast where she had less sensation is the breast that's actually the overachiever breast. So the sensation is not equal to the ability to produce milk at post reduction. And I know a lot of people are concerned about that because I had that question a lot. But there are very few instances where you don't make milk. Like, we do this. This is what our body does. So just to dispel that. Also, it's very important to get off to a good start. Shameless plug, at Choosing Joy, I have a breastfeeding workshop because I feel as though it's very important to go into it having an understanding of what it entails. And one of the first things that I tell my clients is that breastfeeding is very high maintenance. For me, I'm a type A personality, so I need to know what I'm getting into. That's very important for me. So for me, as a type A personality, I like to know, okay, it's high maintenance. All right, that gives me an idea that I know I'm going to be up for a challenge. We get painted this picture that, oh, breastfeeding is so natural and it's so beautiful. And it is. It's natural and it's beautiful. However, it doesn't always come naturally because we have a new mom and we have a new baby that's trying to do this. So it can be challenging, but those challenges can be overcome. And that's why I'm here. So just for kind of like a little bit of background information. I also want to plug in Dr. Jack Newman. If you are breastfeeding, looking to breastfeed, interested in breastfeeding information, Dr. Jack Newman is one of the most foremost minds in breastfeeding. He's so good. I love his book. And he basically dispels a lot of myths about pumping and dumping, the need to do that, not being able to take certain medications. He specifies instances where you cannot breastfeed because we get a lot. Yes, okay, Clem, so you're familiar with Dr. Newman. I love him because he's basically giving it to you like in a third world country, right? Moms are breastfeeding their babies. There's no options. There's no formula. Do you think they're sitting there worrying about all this? Oh, well, I just ate this or I just drank it. No, they're breastfeeding because the babies need food. And the way our bodies are designed, we are designed to be able to filter out these things that our babies don't need and that are harmful to our babies. So he's given that information to where a lot of doctors, they're more so on the side of because they don't know certain things, it's an automatic no, which I don't agree with. But let's get into this little bit of A&P. So lactogenesis is the process of making milk. Ooh, hold on. My camera's doing stuff. Okay. So lactogenesis is the process of making milk. During lactogenesis, there's 3 phases. The first phase of lactogenesis. So when you tell me you don't have milk, false, because you start making colostrum at 20 weeks. 20 weeks, you start making colostrum. So halfway through the pregnancy, your breasts are preparing to breastfeed the baby. And like I said, my client just delivered at 24 weeks. So with that being said, if she delivered at 24 weeks, she's making milk. What I'm saying is true. We all start making milk at 20 weeks. So that's the colostrum. That's what everybody talks about in the beginning. The nutrient rich, it has immunological factors in it. So building up the baby's immune system, tackling allergies, and just really getting your baby off to a very, very healthy start. So that is lactogenesis 1. And so when I mentioned conditions where you can't breastfeed, I forgot to also mention hypothyroid issues because sometimes that causes a shift in the hormones. And in the beginning, breastfeeding is very much driven by hormones. So it goes from what we call endocrine, which is our hormonal system, pituitary and all that good stuff. And it switches over to autocrine. So we'll get into that. Lactogenesis 2 is the second part of milk production. And so in that second part, when the baby is born and the placenta detaches, you have a drop in estrogen, you have a drop in progesterone, and you have a drop in human placental lactogen. So when those things happen, yes, Clem, I see you, and I appreciate you during this live. But when those things happen, then we're now at the point where our bodies are recognizing, okay, let's shoot up the prolactin levels. Prolactin is what allows you to make milk. So prolactin is the hormone that's responsible for milk production. Oxytocin is the hormone that's responsible for milk release. So when prolactin goes up, that is probably about 30, 40 hours post-delivery. That's when you hear moms talk about their milk coming in, right? So we transition from colostrum over to the milk that is actually part fat, part water. So that's our lactogenesis 2. And once lactogenesis 2 takes place, we move on to lactogenesis 3. And that part of milk production is where it really is regulated at that point at the breast level, which means it's demand and supply. We're often hearing supply and demand, but in this case, it is demand and supply. So as many times as milk is removed from your breast, that's how many times you are going to be filling back up. There is a whey protein in milk that's called FIL, and it basically kind of regulates. It's there to regulate whether or not the breasts are going to fill or whether or not they're going to be empty. And like I said, that's all based on, is there even space? So if your breasts are large and engorged because you haven't removed any milk, you can't get any milk back in. So it's very important when I talk about milk management. That means, how often are we feeding this baby? How many milk removals are we having in a 24-hour period? And I'll lightly touch on some other things, but I know there are a bunch of other wonderful speakers that are going to be coming before you this week. So I want to just kind of give you a little bit here and there. Yesterday, one of the ladies was talking on positioning. So you guys can go back, check that live out, the different positionings of breastfeeding. But it's just very important to make sure we're staying on this schedule of making sure that we're having the milk removals that we're supposed to in 24 hours. So, I told y'all I'm old fashioned. I have my notebook with my little notes on it. But so milk production, like I said, localizes to the breast. And one thing we need to keep in mind, skin to skin is so important. They can indeed produce milk, yes. Yeah, it's just always this idea of, I can't make milk, I don't have milk. Stop, sis. Relax. You do. It's just the lack of education. And so when I was asked about what topic to talk on, imposter syndrome is very, very real. And I'm sitting here like, what can I add to this conversation? What value do I have to add to this conversation? What do I know that they don't know? And then it kind of started to dawn on me. Talk about what you're seeing with your clients. And this is that very thing. So we want 8 to 12 removals in a day. And I'm going to tell you personally, I like 10 to 12. I know a lot of people say 8, and that's all well and good. That would be if you're feeding the baby about every 3 hours, and 12 would be if you're feeding the baby every 2 hours. But what I want you to know also, put back on my nurse hat, from a biological standpoint, our babies, human babies, are the least developed, the least neurologically and physiologically developed. What does that mean? That is why our babies come out. They're not walking when they come out like the rest of the mammal kingdom and all that good stuff. That's not the case. Our babies demand on us heavily. So that skin to skin, that's releasing oxytocin, putting us in a place to be able to release our milk. The skin to skin is also regulating baby's temperature, is regulating baby's heart rate. It's calming, is reassuring, and it's boosting your milk production. So all these things are really important in the beginning. And then also we need to keep in mind that our milk, because our babies are less physiologically and neurologically sound, our milk has a very low fat and protein content. you probably want to know, or you wanted to become a doula in South Carolina, please check out NBDA. I'm not just saying that because I'm a member. NBDA is a great, great organization. And I'm really glad, like a lot of my clients, I would say, 90% of the people that are referred to me are from NBDA. And it's just nice to have the lens of Black people. It's nice to be able to learn in a context that's specified for us. So when I do go back and renew my certifications, I will definitely be checking out NBDA. And my mentor, let me shout her out. My mentor, Michelle Caldwell. She's an excellent mentor. So if you're looking for mentorship, there are a bunch of excellent mentors in affiliation with the National Black Doulas. Just check out their website. But back to what I was saying about milk. So our milk is metabolized very quickly. And that's why we're doing every 2 to 3 hours. So when that baby wants to feed every 2 hours, the baby's not being extra. The baby is metabolizing the milk. And so we need to keep that feeding schedule up. That is a lot. That's a lot to ask of a mom that has just had a baby, right? Even if the birth is vaginal, we know that it is a lot to have delivered a baby and now have this little beautiful creature looking at us that wants to eat every 5 seconds. However, this is what we have to do to establish that milk. And it can be done in a way that is minimally inconveniencing. So you can look back and just kind of go over the positions. One of the positions I love to tell moms about is that sideline position. The sideline position is awesome. How long are average feeding sessions? For me, I like to see 20 to 30 minutes on either breast. And I put it like this. When I go out to eat, I like my appetizer, I like my entree, and I like my dessert. And sometimes I like coffee at the end. So same thing with the baby. Offer the baby both breasts. Offer the first breast for 20 to 30 minutes. The second breast, same. Sometimes baby will fall asleep at the breast. Sometimes the baby will get tired. But I'm going to circle back to that on ways that we can get this baby to be awake and alert and ready to eat. So back to the 2-hour feeding schedule. So we want to keep that up. Also, I want to put into you guys' mind, yes, I'm a lactation counselor. I said in the beginning of the live, I'm a lactation counselor. And then I am also, I'm working towards becoming an IBCLC. So I have 90 hours towards my IBCLC. And now I'm just working on getting the hours to be able, of practical, working with moms, which I work with moms all the time, but I can't sign off on myself that I know of. So I'm actually in the process of calling the board of examinations to see like how I can go about getting those hours so I can sit for the test, because that class that I took, those additional 90 hours were like excellent. Like they were so excellent. Just so much knowledge that I had no clue about in terms of breastfeeding. Now, I wish I knew when I was. But so 20 to 30 minutes each breast. And in the beginning, a lot of moms will ask me, well, what about the pump? What about this? I find that my moms are ready to pump like soon as the baby is born. Again, I need you to take a step back, sis. Put the baby on your breast. Let the baby latch. The baby latching is the best pump. In those first couple of days, you really want to make sure that you are close to your baby, skin to skin with your baby, all of these good things. And you want to make sure that your baby is latching. Now we will discuss latch because sometimes we have issues with latch. And if there's an issue with the latch, then there's potentially going to be an issue with milk production. So sometimes pumping is needed. In my case, my children were tongue-tied and lip-tied. I did not get any of them corrected. So here I am living proof that you can breastfeed through tongue ties and lip ties. But I didn't get them corrected. And I did do a lot of pumping, particularly with my 4th child, because I wanted to get her sisters involved and I wanted to be able to have, my husband involved and all that stuff. So it was a nice way to get them to give her a bottle or whatever the case may be. So for me, in those first 3 to 4 weeks, if you can just latch and keep up that schedule, that's awesome. tongue tie here with correct. Oh, you did. Okay, so you did do the correction. What was your experience, Clem? I'm interested. What was your experience with the correction? I had a girlfriend that had the correction done, and everything went well after that. For me, with my daughter not correcting, I still continued to pump, and I did still continue to latch her, but I still continued to pump to make sure my breasts were drained, and I would still latch her. And somewhere around about 3 months, just her anatomy kind of, I guess, loosened up, and her latch got a lot better, and she just got a lot more efficient at removing milk. So let me go ahead. Oh, good. Okay, your son was able to latch. And there's degrees on the tongue tie, too, so it depends. Let me go ahead and show you guys my boob, because representation matters. There's this big old boob here. So shout out to the big boob girls. It's not my group, but I'm representing y'all today. So we're talking about latching, just to go back to making sure, because what I would hate for you to do is be latching your baby and then have some kind of issue with tongue or lip tie, and it's not properly removing the milk, and then you get discouraged. So proper latch. We want our babies. This is our baby's mouth. We want our baby's mouth, lips curled back like this. The tongue is supposed to be underneath the nipple. So when our baby goes to latch, first and foremost, before we even get into this stuff, we want an awake baby. We want our baby to be awake, alert, and oriented ×3, as we say in the RN realm. We want our baby alert. So what I typically would do, and what I recommend to a lot of my clients, is let's get the baby a little bit upset. Nobody wants their baby upset, but we want a good feed. We want optimal results. So you want to open up the shirt. You can tickle the bottom of the baby's feet. You can have the baby laying on your chest, just engage the baby when the baby wakes up. And the goal also is to look for those feeding cues. So what do I mean by feeding cues? Our babies root when they want to eat, which means they turn their head to the right and the left. If you put a baby in the cradle position, they're going to turn their head. They'll do it to mom, to dad, grandma, whomever. They're looking for the nipple. So that is an automatic response. Y'all, please ignore my house phone. I'm probably the last dinosaur on earth with a house phone. But in any event, we also are looking for the baby's hands to their mouth. We're looking for the baby being more alert. Typically when they're hungry, they wake up, they're more alert. Eyes are wide open, they're looking around. So they're giving you that signal, feed me. That's when you want to catch the baby for a feed. Because it gets very challenging to try to latch a baby that's irritated and aggravated. So moving on, we want to avoid the baby being at the stage where he or she is crying, restless, upset. If that is the case, prior to the feed, we need to soothe the baby. So we need to get the baby, if it's a swaddle, if it's rocking, whatever it is that you do to soothe your baby, you want to do that before the feed. Because if you put a fussy baby at your breast, you are going to be frustrated, and your baby is going to be frustrated. So now that we know how we want our baby, let's go back to our latch. We want our lips curled out. We want the baby to be opening the mouth very wide. So what I tell my clients to do is take the nipple and run it nose, lip, mouth. Or you could do up from the chin. Because what you're doing is just basically stimulating them to open up their mouth. Once the baby opens up their mouth wide, we have the baby by the back. So you're kind of like, you're not forcing it. You bring the breast to the baby. You don't bring the baby to the breast, right? Because when you bring the baby to the breast, a lot of times, that's kind of like, so it's this whole thing. You're like forcing the baby's head, and that's not what you want to do. You're just trying to support the baby's head. So you're providing that support back at the back of the head, and you're bringing the breast to the baby. And you want the baby to be, you see this? So you can't really see the areola. You can still see some of it, and that's fine. And that, of course, depends on the size of the person's areola. But you want the baby to be taking in as much of the areola as possible. So you see the lips are flanged back. The baby's chin would be touching the breast. The baby's top lip also flanged back. And this is what we want. We want a good latch. We do not want any of this down here at the tip of the nipple. That is not what we want. Because when we have that going on, that is going to be very painful. And so I was asked yesterday, like, is it really not supposed to be painful? In the beginning, it's new. It's uncomfortable. You're having uterine cramps. So, of course, it's going to be, some discomfort and pain. However, it's not supposed to stay that way. After the initial latch, once the baby makes that suction and they have good contact with the breast, It should not be painful. You will in the early days feel cramping in your uterus, and that's great. The uterus has to go through a process called involution. That process means that the uterus is going from big back down to underneath the belly button. So right after delivery, you want the uterus to be at the navel, and then after that it should continue to go down, and breastfeeding helps that because of that oxytocin. It's the same hormone that causes us to go into labor and have those contractions that mediate labor. So we want to make sure our latch is good, and we want to make sure that we are in an optimal position latch wise. If we're not having a good latch and you're not able to achieve that, I urge you to see a lactation consultant, please, because with my first 3, I had no clue. My mom breastfed me, and I asked her, but I mean, I was, I'm her youngest child, so she didn't remember exactly all the ins and outs. Do not feel bad seeking help via a lactation counselor, peer counselor, via WIC. The hospitals have them now. Like, just talk to somebody. Also, I've been seeing a lot of clients that have been talking about their nipples being inverted or kind of flat. So you get a nipple shield. You can find a nipple shield on Amazon, any place that sells baby things, Target, Walmart, any place. But what you want to do is have your nipples sized. For some reason, somebody decided that 24 is the standard and 27. So when you get a kit of flanges for pumping and or for a breast shield, a lot of times you will see 24, 27. And what I'm seeing that a lot of my clients are more a 20 or 21. Half of the battle with breastfeeding is having the right equipment. So you want to get your nipple size. Once again, I went onto Amazon and I found a ruler that had a bunch of little diameters, and you just literally put it on your nipple. And what your sizing is, I meant to have my ruler out, but I don't. So what your sizing is basically nipple to the base, like right where it meets the areola. You don't want the areola inside the measurement. You just want right where it meets the areola, and that's going to tell you what size your nipple shield should be and what size your nipple flanges should be. And that's very, very important to breastfeeding. And then I get a lot of questions regarding output and how does that work in terms of how do I know my baby is getting enough? How do I know I'm having adequate milk removals? When you leave the hospital or while you're in the hospital, the baby will sometimes after birth lose about 7 to 10% of its body weight, and that is 100% normal. And that is for a lot of reasons. They're not inside of you, so they're not getting the fluid that they were once getting from you. So they're going to diurese, what we call diurese. They're going to pee, sweat, whatever the case may be, out that fluid. Also, so in a vaginal birth, if you've had a lot of IV fluids, in a C-section for sure, they give you a lot of IV fluids. If you were administered an epidural, the more fluids, IV fluids, whatever the case may be, that you had, that's a more of a chance for the baby to need to be able to rid their body of that extra circulating fluid. Remember that anything that is going on with maternal is going to affect fetal. So some of that is also going to be delivered to the baby as well. So yeah, they don't tell moms that, and they get nervous. So that's why you have that checkup after you leave the doctor, the hospital. You have that checkup with the doctor, and that's just basically to make sure everything is good from a weight-based standpoint. And a really, really easy way to know if your baby is doing their job, you're doing your job, and the baby's doing their job in terms of removals is to consider the fact that, yes, you do worry, and it's very, very it's very anxiety provoking to be a new mom and you go and then they're telling you your baby's not meeting weight goals. So another way to know is to be able to look at the output. Output, as long as the kidneys are functioning, our output is always going to tell us whether or not our bodies are doing what they're supposed to be doing. So day 1, it follows day 1 through 5. You want 1 pee, 1 poop day 1. Day 2, 2 pees, 2 poops, so on and so forth. It's very simple. Once we get to day 5, we want to see 5 to 6 pees, and we want to see about 3 or 4 poops. And that's going to change. That's going to vary based on the baby. It's going to vary based on whether you're exclusively breastfeeding. Those you'll be seeing the yellow, seedy, the more yellow and seedy poops, versus if the baby has formula, you're going to see like the more greenish poops, and because of the iron in most of the formulas, they're more constipating. So that's just something to kind of keep in mind if you're doing both. And if your baby is not pooping every single, like 3-4 times a day, it's not something that you necessarily right away need to be concerned about. Yes, the yellow seedy poops, because they don't really smell. They're kind of just like, it's kind of like very mild until they get older. That's another story though. But keep in mind also cluster feeding. So I'm telling you 2 to 3 hours. Yes, but keep in mind that sometimes our babies just want to be held. They want to be close to us. They want to latch. They want to feed. And also during periods of growth spurts, we'll also see our babies eating more. So at a minimum, what I'm telling you is 10 to 12 removals. If you're seeing that your baby is exceeding that, breastfeeding is very much on demand. So if you're seeing that your baby is exceeding that, hey Janelle, it is not a problem. Breastfeeding is very much on demand. But when I say on demand, we want to make sure that we're getting those feedings in, particularly at nighttime. A lot of times people at nighttime fall off, and you don't necessarily breastfeed at nighttime. So another fun fact, breastfeeding, there is a highest level of prolactin, the hormone that makes milk, which I told you earlier, at nighttime. So we do want to have nighttime feeds, and we do want to have nighttime pumps if that's what we're doing. So it's very important to just keep that in mind. Removals around the clock. So the whole 24-hour period, 10 to 12 removals. But we're also being on demand and giving our baby, following our baby's cues, because that's a lot of what, first of all, that's what being a mom is, right? So breastfeeding is a nice introduction to motherhood, period, because we're following this kind of, okay, this is what they're telling us to do, 10 to 12 feeds in 24 hours. But there's also an intuitive process to it where we are seeing what's the feedback that we're getting from our baby. What's the baby's output like? What's my breast like? Things of that nature. Also, just going to double back talking about the pumping. So hand expression. I had no clue about it. Hand expression is so good. You want to, while you are pumping, be able to massage the breast. Massage the breast tissue. Remember that breast tissue can go all the way up underneath the armpit. So when we're massaging, bring it all the way down. And that's just helping to remove that milk. They have a nice little device now. It vibrates and it's warm. So if you're trying to relieve engorgement, go under warm water. You can also use that device that I was mentioning. It's a warmer, and it kind of takes the shape of kind of like a half moon. And you can use it as you're pumping to just go like this, and it vibrates also. So it's loosening up all those areas of engorgement. It's very difficult to latch a baby on an engorged breast. So you want to make sure that your breasts are nice and soft, keeping them nice and soft. We want to do nipple maintenance with our creams. I'm a Lansano girl. I am, I think it's Freedom Mom. I saw my client using yesterday. Coconut oil, olive oil. We want to make sure we're doing nipple care and doing it even if without the presence of an issue. So without cracked nipples, without bleeding or any of that kind of stuff, because we don't want to get there. So nipple maintenance is very important as well. Make sure that yes, breast milk. I'm so glad you said that, Clem. Breast milk as well. Breast milk is good for everything. So I have breast milk still from feeding my 3-year-old, and your clients love lanolin for the nipple. Yes, I like that also. Lanolin is really, really good. It's a nice thick coat. And most of them you don't have to take off. With the hydrogel pads, I know Medela makes hydrogel pads sometimes for when your nipples are sore, or if you have some kind of irritation going on or whatever the case may be. You can use those, but they urge you to wipe it off before you feed the baby. So just read the container to make sure that you know whether or not you should wipe it off. But natural things such as olive oil, coconut oil, the breast milk, obviously, none of those things need to be wiped off. So moving along, I also wanted to just touch on nipple confusion. But before I do that, 2 more things. So it's also important to make sure that you're removing, because fattier milk. So as I said before, milk is comprised of fat and protein. So the fattier milk is going to need, it needs space to be able to fill in the breast. So you want to be able to remove it so that you're able to get milk that has that fat content to it, because that's how the baby is gaining weight. That's what's giving the baby the gains. So you don't want to wait to get engorged, because now that I'm thinking back and when I read that, I remember that when I would be really engorged and I would go to pump, it would be so much like water content. It would just be a lot of a watery kind of a thing. And then I realized, oh, my husband jumped in. Hey, husband. So then I realized that it kind of rung a bell, like when I was pumping, that, yeah, I was seeing a lot more. So there's truth to that. If your breasts are drained, then you're more likely going to have a higher fat content to your milk, and that's what you want. So the fat content, you'll see it when you pump sometimes. I know you can't see it, obviously, when you're latching your baby, but you'll see the separation. So it'll be like a thick cream. It almost looks like heavy cream on the top of the milk, and then it's the bottom looks more like a watery situation. And I'm sure most of you guys know which, let's see, I gotta hop off. Oh, thank you so much, Clem. I really appreciate you. Just the feedback, the engagement, and you have a good week as well. Happy breastfeeding week to you also. I lost my train of thought. See, this is why I have notes. Anyway, let's just skip. I don't know what I was going to say. Let's skip to nipple confusion. So nipple confusion is something that I've been seeing a lot with a lot of clients, and I often get asked when to introduce a pacifier or another nipple. There is no way to ascertain whether or not your baby is going to take to another nipple and then come back to yours. What I do know, and they call it nipple confusion, but to me, it's not so much nipple confusion. It's more so fatty milk. Thank you so much, Kylie. Yeah, so back to the fatty milk. What I was basically saying was talking about the difference between how there's the thick cream layer on the top, and then there's that lighter level of milk on the bottom. So what I was transitioning into was talking about how the feedback system of when we feed our babies. So when our babies latch on, there's a communication between baby saliva and our breasts and our blood vessels and all that good stuff. And we pick up, it's like an information exchange. We pick up information about what's going on. So let's say baby latches and the baby has a strep throat. Our breast milk is going to go into go-go Power Ranger mode, and it is going to morph into exactly what the baby needs at that time. That's why I love to encourage latching. Pumping is just as good. So look, my fourth baby and my third, honestly, I did a lot of pumping. But when you latch the baby, there is that communication, and your breast milk is going to change. So when you start storing milk, you're going to see the difference. Sometimes you look at your milk and it looks different. And of course, that's from different levels in the fat content, which fat content, I believe, is higher at nighttime. And then the water content. But you'll also see during sickness, if you look at that milk that was freezed or that's pumped into a bottle, you can tell the difference. So latching is really, really great. If you can't latch, look, breast milk is really, really great. But I just wanted to throw that in there. It is called the spit backwash theory, if you want to look that up and get some more information. Also, I'm going to link some things on my page. I'm going to try to link it underneath this as well once this goes up. But just some tips. I like Kelly Mom a lot. Kelly Mom is a great site just for quick references on breastfeeding. And then there's another site with regard to like breast surgeries to give you guys some insight on what is the literature saying about breast surgeries and being able to lactate. So back to nipple confusion, and then I will be out the way. I appreciate y'all for sticking with me. So this is my last thing. I don't think it's so much nipple confusion as if you don't cultivate your milk and get your milk to come in properly, then when you give the baby, so if the BM looks different, should you label store milk 6 strip? No, because anytime that the baby is sick, your body's going to continue to do that. So you don't have to. You could, and I think that's a great idea, Erica. I never even thought about that. That's a great idea, but just know that it's not going to happen just once. So if your baby gets a strep in April and then you're still breastfeeding in August and they get another strep in your latching, same thing. Your baby's still going to be able to have that. And then just keep in mind, breast milk in and of itself, baseline, has immunologic factors to it. So there's always antibodies, and there's always just an abundance of things, nutrients and things in your milk that is going to be beneficial to your child, to promote healing in your child. But I don't think of it as so much as nipple confusion. I look at it more so as what I'm seeing is babies will be switched over to the bottle too quickly before mom establishes her milk, which means mom is not doing the 10 to 12 milk removals. And so the milk is not flowing the way the milk flows from a bottle. We also need to keep in mind that when we're feeding a baby from a bottle, that we need to be making sure for a newborn we're using those #1 nipples, or if it's a preemie nipples, because what I'm seeing is these babies are smart, honey. And then we talking post-pandemic babies, okay? So these babies are smart. They realize that the milk is not coming out at the same rate. When a baby latches onto the breast, there has to be some suckling, and that's going to send that message to the brain, okay, oxytocin, let's go, so we can release the milk. That's going to take a little bit of time. If your milk is properly regulated, then that's going to be quicker. Some women have a very forceful letdown of milk. I did, and it sprayed like a shower head. Some women do not. I'm hearing a lot of people say that they don't. So keep in mind that may or may not be the case. But when a baby goes to drink a bottle, you go to put the bottle to the baby's mouth. It's a slightly different mechanism in terms of how the milk is coming out. And the baby is getting the milk plenteously. So the baby is now smart enough to understand that I don't have to work as hard at the bottle as I do at the breast. So the baby will latch on. The baby's going to stay there for a little while. And I'm seeing with my clients that the babies are getting very upset. Like, hold up, where's my milk? What's going on? And that's because that supply is not being established as it should. So I wish that there would be more of a mention of just that quote unquote nipple confusion, as making sure that we make sure our milk comes in first prior to just labeling it as nipple confusion. I don't think that's so much the case also, because I didn't experience that issue with my kids. But I also was very good as far as milk removals. My challenges came in more so with the ties of the lip and the tongue, but I was very diligent with my milk removals, and just basically they call it like a breastfeeding vacation. So on weekends sometimes, look, I'm turning on my TV and I'm watching movies and I'm just laying in bed, because I love newborns. So I love to be up underneath my babies and loving on my kids and stuff like that. So I'm right there with them in bed, and all that closeness would kind of help regulate my my milk production. So that wasn't so much my issue, but I am seeing that as an issue with my clients. And with that being the case, that makes it challenging to be able now to put this baby on the breast that really is not trying to have it, because this baby wants to eat, honey. This baby's hungry. So this live is going to be, that's the end of my content. I have been before you long enough. I had a little bit of technical difficulties in the beginning, but I appreciate you guys for popping in, for sticking with me. As I said, my name is Shanita, and my business is called Choosing Joy. And my, let me see if I remember my hashtag, or my handle correctly, @_RNDoula_. I change it so much, but yes, @_RNDoula_. So I'm gonna link all that stuff underneath here, and I'm gonna go onto my page and just try to put up some quick references for the link to Kelly Mom, put up some info as far as, thank you, Janelle, I appreciate your support. Put up some info just as far as power pumping and things of that nature. I didn't want to get too much into detail about certain things, because like I said, I don't know what all the other ladies will be covering. But I did just want to give you guys just an overview as to what is milk production. How do you, thank you, babe, for doing that. Let me see. I don't know how to pin stuff. Let me see. I do know how to pin stuff. Thank you, baby. But yes, so I'm going to link some things that I think are helpful, useful. If you have any questions, you can hit me up at RN Doula. It's pinned at the top. Thank you to National Black Doula Association. Tracie always says that this Doula Association is for us, and she's telling the truth, because she seeks opportunities to allow us platforms to be able to show our showcase our talent, and to be able to show that the members of the National Black Doula Association are very capable and competent women. So I'm happy to be amongst that demographic of women, and be on the lookout. I'm not sure of the times of the rest of the lives, but for the rest of the week, there will be other speakers as well for this National Black Breastfeeding Week. I enjoyed our time together, and thank you guys for stopping in. Talk to you guys later. Hope you have a great week. Let me see.